Hi everyone. I just thought it's high time I did a recap of this corner space because it's actually been a year since I transformed it and I couldn't believe it myself. So I looked back at what it was, and it started off with my grass. I just needed to plant up this grass, and I had a pole or one of those pipes that I wanted to use and plant up the grass into that pipe because it would give it good height, and that's what the grass needed. That carex is such a beautiful grass. And then when I put it there, it looks so lovely in that corner because with that height, it just made the carex grass look so cute. And then it made the entire space look terrible, or I should say it just highlighted how bad the rest of the space looked. So I was gonna do up the corner, but you just put off things forever. And then after I put the grass, I just thought, oh, I have to change it up because now it's so obvious how untidy the entire corner looks with my beautiful grass there with all its flowing hair. I thought I have to clean up this spot and make something of it. It had become, the catch-all of all unwanted pots and empty pots and neglected plants. And so I had to remove everything and clear up that spot or that space to see. And then it's amazing once you clean up a space, you this it surprises you, or I should say the size surprises you, because I thought I couldn't do anything in that space, but after I took out everything and I did widen it up a bit and I changed it up, it looked so good. And I just put a little bench that I had, well, not a bench, just some blocks, and I had a piece of railway sleeper, and I put some stones which I broke. They were actually pavers, old pavers that I broke up and made some stepping stones in the garden, and it looked so cute because I made that path for the dogs. And then that it just transformed that space, just clearing it up and putting something in there. I did take the bench out eventually because it was encroaching on my precious planting space. So yeah, you can see how lovely that looked. I did leave some of the plants that were there, like my aster. You can see how old it's, 1 year old. It was so tiny and now it's so tall. If you've watched my recent videos, you would see how tall it's gone. But yeah, that space, from being unused, looked so beautiful. I couldn't believe how or what a transformation it was. So just by adding that grass, it just forced me to make that entire space neater. And then spring came around, and oh, it was so beautiful, absolutely stunning. Well, for me, because there was nothing in the space, and I threw some alyssum seeds there, and I bought a few daisies and planted them up over the winter, and for spring it was so beautiful. I just loved that spot, and the bees were there, and my grass was so lovely. And the few plants that I did plant there, some native plants like the orthothamnus and stuff, they had also grown. So I couldn't believe, I usually didn't have a lot of flowers in the garden, and putting um, this much flowers in this corner, it was something that was new to me, and I just loved it so much. And then, by then I had decided that I wanted to do something else with the space because in fact, I did plant the flowers after I decided to put a bee hotel up, and all the all the plants started growing by spring. So all this prep happened, from April. April in Melbourne is our autumn. So from autumn, over winter and then for spring, everything had settled in, and the plants started growing, and all the seedlings that I put in started sprouting. So it was nice and ready for the bee. The bee hotel that I had put up. I think I put up the hotel also in autumn once I cleared up the garden, I planted stuff, and then I put the hotel there. And I just planted simple plants there. I didn't, buy anything too extravagant. I I just wanted simple things that the bees would like, and I know, well, not, also because I wasn't very experienced in growing flowers. I mostly had succulents, and this flower garden or pollinator garden was mainly for the bees. So I had to start small and see how I go. And it was more than what I had anticipated or expected or thought it would look like. I couldn't believe how beautiful it looked when all the flowers bloomed. And my little bee hotel was all ready, and I had now that I had the hotel there, that's why I planted the flowers. So there was the food source, and I was just waiting for my guests to arrive. Everything was ready for them in spring, and I was so excited with all my handiwork and all these flowers blooming so prettily. And I did plant, I said simple flowers because I was trying to attract the native bees and solitary bees. So, well, the honeybees they are all about, and they were here as well. But and I and the well, the native bees are really small, so I couldn't even see them, and thought it was just such a failure because I couldn't see them. And now, only since it's been a year, I know what to look for. That I have seen them, so I know they are coming to the space, and that's the best thing ever because they found a food source, and they can come here all the time. So that in that respect, it was a success, and spring was so beautiful, ready, especially after a cold winter, with so much blooming so early in spring. I was so happy because apart from my dandelions that I had going for the winter, there was more food for them. And the native plants that I put in had all caught on and were flowering. So I was just waiting for the bees to arrive. I thought it was a failure because I couldn't see any bees. And then in January, so January is our summer, midsummer, I was just giving up hope on this bee hotel. I thought nobody wants to come and stay here. And then I saw one of the bamboo sticks had been filled. And then I thought, is that real or am I seeing something? And then I went again and I checked the next day. And then I saw another bamboo shoot had a stem had been filled and blocked up. And then I saw more bees around and I actually saw them. So these are the solitary bees that live alone. So what they do is they make a home inside one of these bamboo tubes, and they lay about 5 or 6 eggs in them. Or so they'll lay one egg, seal it up, and sorry, put food, an egg, seal up that little cavern. Call it, can it be a cavern? Maybe room. Oh, yeah, seal up that room, and then they'd lay another egg, fill it up with food and pollen, and then seal up that room. So in that one tube, there's like maybe 5 or 6 babies in there. And so once I saw that, I was there like every day looking at it and stalking these bees. And there were so many bees, it wasn't just one. So all of them were buzzing around, and I had not seen these bees before. So these are native Australian bees. I don't know what it. I did look it up. I can't remember now what it was. I'll put it on the screen. And yeah, so how good is that? From being nothing, from a wasted space, neglected area with nothing going on there, in a year, less than a year actually. So if I started that in autumn, well, almost a year, by the next summer, it it was a living garden full of life, and I had all these bees making a home there, and they are starting the next generation of bees. And there were so many native bees that also came to the hotel. So I don't know if they made any nests. I couldn't see. But I also found that these bees were staying in the little bamboo tubes while they were making their home, or building up the nursery. They were staying there. So I saw these cute little bee butts jutting out of each of the tubes, and it was so adorable. Well, it was a success. So, if you want to go for it, get a bee hotel, just do it. And you can see the bee butts out of each of the little bamboo holes. They were sleeping in there. So I was running there early in the morning and checking on them. And I had my water bowl for the bees. So the honeybees were there. They were just drinking lots of water. Well, they drink water all the time. So that's also one way to just bring these bees to the garden. And I was so excited with the transformation of the space. It went from nothing to this beautiful spring garden and lush summer, and now we are back in autumn. So a year on, there's some changes that I want to make to the space. It's just looking a bit scraggly now because we're at the end of the growing season, but I need to tame it up a bit. So I've got the Hardenbergia that I planted last winter. That was in June. Oh, it's not August, end of winter. And then I need to trim or tame that actually because it's a creeper. And then my grass is all hidden because this Hardenbergia has grown so fast. I didn't expect it to grow so quickly. I actually hadn't put a trellis there, and I had to just put up a trellis, by the end of spring because it grew so quickly. And now I'm just trying to train it to grow onto the pomegranate tree because the pomegranate will lose all its leaves in winter, and this Hardenbergia flowers at the end of winter. And once it blooms, it looks so beautiful. That tree will be full of purple flowers. So I need to give it more space. That's why I want to take out my grass, the tall plant, the pipe that I had put in there. But also learnings from the year that I've had my hotel is that the space got a bit too hot for it, and it does need warmth, but it can't get too hot. So I covered it up with some branches, and initially I put a little cardboard, a piece of cardboard as a an extension there to shield it. So I put it here originally because I knew the pomegranate would give it shade, but it wasn't enough shade, so I had to, do all this MacGyver things here and put in some branches and cardboard and stuff to give it additional shade. So that was a learning that I needed to change the positioning of the bee hotel. So that's why I was going to take it out now and put it on the east facing wall so it's gets that just a gentle sunlight and not that harsh sunlight in the afternoon. And I was going to take out this olive tree. It's just a stump here now, but that stump, I've been trying to kill it for a while, and it's not dying, it's just growing every time I keep cutting it. So we are going to cut it at the base, and I'm going to use that stump to mount the bee hotel onto that and just move it. So it's always good to just try and see what works, and then you learn from that, which is the best positioning and if that worked or that didn't work. And here it was a great success in that all the bees came there, and I did shield it, so I know that the babies were safe there. They weren't cooking inside their nests. But I want to move it for next season. So now is the time while everyone's sleeping in there and growing quietly. I want to move them, and so next season when they come to build more nests, they will be in a good spot. See, this Hardenbergia is already getting all its little buds for in preparation for winter. And that's what's so cool about these native plants, is that they flower over the cooler months when there's so little food around for the bees and other pollinators. So I hope it catches on properly. And my you can see how tiny it was when I planted it next to this grass. And my grass, I need to move it as well to give this Hardenbergia more space. But I'll just do that one of the days. I need to find a spot for it. It's just getting really squashed, and it's all hidden. I can't appreciate its beautiful strappy leaves. Well, the tree is coming down the stump, so that was a noisy job. We had to get it at the base, but I don't know if I don't think we killed it yet, so we'll have to do that. And now the other plants that were behind it, these are all natives, they will get more sun as well, and space, and be able to grow better over the next growing season. I planned on putting the bee hotel next to the maple tree, because this wall gets east facing light, so I had to cut out that huge sedum that was there. It was just wasting space, because it doesn't even get flowers or enough flowers for any of the bees or any insects to come to it. So I cut it up, gave it away, put it on the roadside, and that opened up that space by the window to put that olive stump there, and I can add the hotel there, so it's in a good position with the morning light, and it won't get so much of wind or anything as well. And another reason was the possum is back and jumping around there, so I was afraid that it will jump and drop the hotel. So that's also why I want to remove it out of that spot. So yes, you can see that was a good spot. We just drilled some hooks there and put it against the wall. Now I could remove the hotel and move it, do some relocations here. Worst time ever is when you got guests living in there. But more importantly, I have another guest who I didn't plan on being there, that's been living there since last winter, and that's a huge huntsman spider. And he or she lives in this one of the bigger bamboo tubes, and I don't mind it. And they were there actually before the bees, or he or she was there before the bees, because it came and stayed there since winter last year, and it doesn't make any webs, it doesn't trap any of the bees, so I don't mind it staying there. But I was so frightened because it's huge, and I didn't want it running onto my hand. So I started to remove things slowly, and did a lot of noise around it. I was hoping it'll run out. Not that I wanted it out of the house, but I thought it'll come out so I could see where it was, and then it should find its way back to the hotel after I moved it. And so anyway, it wasn't moving, so I took it out slowly and kept on. I took very long because I kept moving it and moving it every which way on the ground, but it just went deeper into the tube that it stays in. So I had to just take a chance, because I didn't want to be carrying this thing and the spider run on my arm and me fling the hotel and fling the hotel and cause more damage. So I just took a chance. I did one thing at a time, and I went really slow. First, I thought, let me hook some hooks onto the stand, and then I can just bring the hotel. Then that didn't work because I didn't secure the hook properly, or the wire, and then I had to make sure that the wire didn't come out, because the last thing I wanted is for it to fall on me while I was trying to hook it here. And then second round had hooked the wire properly, and then I just was gonna hook the back of it so that I can see how it's sitting on the top of this stump, and then I was going to secure it slowly. I didn't want to hang around the hotel too long and keep my hand there in case it crawled out. So I did one side of it, I just hooked the back. There was a hook at the back of the hotel, so I hooked that in so I know it's not going to fall forward. And then after that, I just twisted more wire around it and tried to secure it as much as I can. And I know it's not going to fall because it's in a good position. You know, this wall sort of shields it or protects it from very strong winds. And in all this moving of this house, that huntsman spider stayed in that hole. It didn't come out. But I was so glad that I finally moved it. And I know the hotel is now in its new home, and it's good there. Next season, when the babies or the bees come to lay more eggs, because there's so many tubes there, and I'm going to add more hotels. I'm a hotelier now. So I'm gonna yeah, I'm gonna put it in this space because see, this Japanese maple is so lovely. It gives it nice shade, and then in winter it's gonna get nice lovely warm light. It's not gonna get any harsh light. Not that we get harsh light in winter, but yeah, this was mostly for summer and autumn. Yeah, I'm so happy that I moved it. That was one thing I was planning since summer, because I was constantly out there shielding and protecting it. And then, oh, I made a makeshift little extension on the roof because it was raining, and I just wanted to give it a bit of extra protection here so the rain doesn't go on it. But this spot, as I said, it's quite protected because this is against the wall, and the rain doesn't usually hit against this wall, just hits away from it. But I just wanted to be sure. So that was my big job, recapping what the space was and how it ended up and what it's become. So, if you guys want to try it, just try it. Just put some water even, and that will bring, all the pollinators there. So you can see you can go from absolute untidiness to a beautiful, beautiful space, and encourage so much of wildlife to come into the garden. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this recap, and you try something to change any unwanted space, no matter how small it is, and you can see how nature comes rushing in. Thanks for joining me on this tour down memory lane, and I hope you enjoyed being in the garden this week. And I shall see you again next week. Bye.